Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co host, Tyson Gentry. And Tyson, we are back in our normally scheduled episode talking about the week 8 reaction in the NFL. And it was an interesting week on the surface. And so we're going to go through that and really just kind of set the table for an extended stock up, stock down, where we're going to go. And we got a lot of things that we want to hit on because I think really we're at the halfway point in the NFL season, which is crazy to think about. So I think we really know a lot about these teams, or we've seen a lot from these players. And so there's a lot to discuss we want to get to in those segments.
It also feels like we know nothing about some of these teams. That's the weird part about the NFL, right? Is we're sitting here trying to figure out who half the teams in the AFC North really are, who half the teams in the NFC South really are. So, yeah, it's been a really, really interesting first half of the year, Brad. And it's been um, like if you just looked at the teams with the most wins, like the top of the league right now before the season started, you would have said, yeah, that makes sense. But the way that they've gotten here is ridiculous.
And the reason why we don't necessarily know a lot is because, well, let's put it this way. The Cowboys absolutely thrashed the Rams 43-20. A lot of people thought that one was going to be close. The Eagles were in a tight game against the Commanders because they always are. You know, they come out on top, but it was just like one of those, oh my God, are the Eagles really going to lose this game? Like, what's going on? You know, the Atlanta Falcons, who, you know, are they turning
What
the
the hell,
corner?
dude?
They lose to Will Levis, a rookie QB. That was nuts. And how about the 49ers losing their third straight game and the Chiefs not scoring a touchdown, scoring 0 points in the second half and losing to the Denver Broncos?
Pat Mahomes had the flu. That's what I'll say on that game, because it's like I know everybody's freaking out about the Chiefs offense, and it is different than it was a year ago. But I'm a little hesitant to be like, the game where the starting quarterback had the flu is when I'm going to put the dagger in this team. But yeah, man, there's a severe lack of like truly bad teams this year, and I think kind of the way I've been looking at it is nobody separated themselves at the top, really at this point. But I think it's more so like we don't have like a true defined bottom yet. Like we know the Bears are bad, we know the Cardinals are bad, we know the Panthers are bad, but the Panthers just showed up and had a little bit of fight in them. Like, and so that like, how many different teams have been? Oh, they're going to be picking number one for sure already this season that have 3 or 4 wins. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why. And if you haven't listened to our trade deadline reaction show, go check that out. That's on our YouTube. That's in the Apple Podcast and Spotify feed as well. And so we're not going to get into that in this episode because we already did that in a separate episode. But Tyson, that's why I think, and we discussed a little bit, there wasn't a lot of action because everybody's in the playoff hunt still.
It's been fun, but it's also pissing me off because I want to see. I don't know. I'd like it when I don't like teams throwing in the towel, so to speak. But let some of these young guys play. Like I've seen enough of some of these veteran quarterbacks, and I think the teams probably should have already too.
Okay, so that's the surface level week 8 reaction. Let's get into stock up. Why don't you go ahead and start first? I'm very curious where you want to lead us off here.
Oh, we got to start in one place and one place only, Brad. This was the biggest week in the history of Brad Bukai quarterback takes I think that's ever happened. We had, and this is a victory lap for us, Brad. Will Levis is the man. I don't care. I don't care. Oh, what wasn't going to translate? The giant arm. And I'm being a little bit. I'm emphasizing here, and we'll see next week if he really is that good, because this was insane. 4 touchdowns for the kid, awesome efficiency, but it was all the things that like people loved him for 3 years. And then the draft process started, and it was like everybody just got on. It was pile on Will Levis, for a couple months here leading up to the draft, and people are acting like this guy was a bum. The Titans tried to trade back up into the first round for Will Levis. That didn't happen. They trade up to the top of the second round to take Will Levis, which isn't nothing. That's a huge investment. It's not as much as if he would have went 15th. That's obvious, but it's a massive investment. It unlocked like a new sense of this Tennessee Titans football team. Like there was juice on that sideline. Like these guys were a little bit more excited to be out there. There's mic'd up clips of some of these, like Jeffrey Simmons being like, "I told you Will could play." Like they're ready to roll. They're happy. They're excited, and we're happy and excited that our boy was just dropping dong on the haters this weekend.
Oh, I mean, his average depth of target was insane. Like he
Insane.
just went out. I mean, he turned DeAndre Hopkins into Randy Moss. I mean,
He
four
turned him
catches.
back into DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, 4 catches, 128, 3 touchdowns. It was nuts what was going on. And like you said, we'll see on Thursday. They're actually going to play a much better defense than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going to have to go on the road. So how did they handle that on a short week? But for this game, when there was a lot of people that were, I think, really going to, like they were
He was
putting
going
on
to
their
get killed.
bibs. Like they're putting on their bibs. They had their plates. They were ready to start chopping into them. And Will Levis showed up and he showed out, man. Like he did some things where we thought he was going to look like the questionable Will Levis, missing checkdowns, missing different throws. So it wasn't all perfect, but 19 of 29, 238, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and his rookie debut. Not too shabby for the guy, that's for sure.
And on the other side of the field, they got to figure it out in Atlanta. This is, they might win the division and have no idea who they are as a football team.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Tyson, my stock up, the Detroit Lions, and it's for a lot of different aspects. It's not just what's happening on the field. It's not just that they're a really good football team and they continue to show that this year. It's everything that this organization has done. Brad Holmes, the way that he's constructed this roster. Dan Campbell, the way that he's built a culture within that locker room is super impressive. So I'll start with Brad Holmes and then we can get into Dan Campbell because that's a guy that we can also victory lap on. I think there were some questions when Brad Holmes came over from the Los Angeles Rams. Was he ready for this type of job? And you don't really know until you get into that space. And then when he made the trade for Jared Goff, I think a lot of people were like, oh, of course, he's just going to go get a guy he's familiar with. And it turns out, Tyson, like I've been saying, that Jared Goff's actually a good quarterback in the NFL. And he's showing it when you protect him behind an offensive line and give him time to throw. And you have a go-to weapon in the receiving unit like Amon-Ra St. Brown. It opens everything up. And then you just can build around that. And so for Holmes to be able to recognize that, like what's the strengths of my quarterback? Let's build around him. And what can we do on the defensive side where we've had misses? We've been poor for a while. What we're going to do is build in the trenches. We're going to go get the best edge rusher in the draft. And they were lucky he fell to him. But we're going to build on the interior. We're going to get speed at linebacker. We're going to get people who can play downhill. And Jack Campbell. I am super impressed by the team building that Brad Holmes has done at Detroit.
14-4 in the last 18 games. The Detroit Lions. It's insane. It's funny, like, to be sitting here in week 8 and everyone's just kind of like, yeah, that's what we expected. Because we all thought they were going to be a good team, but this is the Detroit Lions we're talking about fighting for a number 1 seed in the NFC. They've never even hosted a playoff game. The road to the Super Bowl might run through Detroit at the end of this year.
That's crazy. And they got punched in the mouth against the Baltimore Ravens. Punched in the mouth and got embarrassed. And then to turn around and put a good performance on. They stumbled in the red zone, and then eventually their talent war. I mean, they were just so much like they could have won that game by 40 against the Raiders. Honestly, just some football mistakes, couldn't get the ball in the end zone early. But I was super impressed by their response. I think what Dan Campbell was saying is like, we got punched in the mouth, we came back to work, and this is the result of it. For the media to just shit all over the Lions because they hired a meathead, and like the media's like, well, you have to hire this type of coach. This is what's working. It's the McVays, it's the Shanahans. There's always going to be a place in football for somebody who's physical, tough, and can motivate and can be a leader. And that's what Dan Campbell is. So what he's done with this unit, it did not start off well, and like it didn't just come in and all of a sudden it was roses and the Lions are good. They were 1-8, I believe, when they started out. And for him to get this team to where they are now, like they're probably going to win the division. I am just so impressed by what's taking place in Detroit. I think this is such a good thing for the city and such a well-deserved thing for this franchise.
And it was a new kind of win for the Detroit Lions last night. Like, they just leaned on the Raiders. We're just bigger than you. Like, eventually, like, we're just going to be bigger and stronger than you. We're struggling to get the ball in the end zone. We've had weird plays happen to us a couple times in this game. We know you're not going to score. So what are we going to do? We're going to run the ball for 180 yards. And this is without David Montgomery. And I know we're excited about Jahmyr Gibbs too over here. David Montgomery is going to take those touches right back. when he comes in because Dan Campbell loves him. And, Gibbs might work his way more into like a 60-40 split, but this is Demon's backfield, and they're even scarier when that guy's carrying the ball. This is a physical team that nobody's going to want to deal with in the coming months.
Who's your next stock up?
Brad, I don't want to do this, but I'm gonna. The Dallas Cowboys, man. We said it in our pre-show. I was stupid. I was young. I was naive last week, and I just thought the Rams were going to be able to throw the ball and make it a game, like keep it a game. And when that game started, it kind of looked like Dak and Stafford were in for an all-time duel. And then all of a sudden, the Cowboys offense didn't even have to touch the ball. Game's over. Like Dallas's defense just flew around, made the plays. Brad, when they kind of hyper target CeeDee Lamb, this offense is way better, like way better. And maybe it was a Kellen Moore thing, maybe it's a Mike McCarthy thing, because that's not how they have played. I don't really think it's how they want to. But if that's what it looks like, it's really scary for everybody else in the NFC because this defense, we know what it is. They're missing some of their best players, man. Still flying around, taking the ball away, scoring touchdowns. Like at some point, the crazy stretch that they've been on will come back down to earth, but I don't know if it's with these guys. Like I think something's got to change because these dudes they find the football and they're in the inside. It's a party every time, essentially when they're at home mostly. But the other part, Brad, that I got the Eagles hat on. I got the Brian Dawkins jersey behind me. It's Dallas week for the Philadelphia Eagles. Dak Prescott's played one of his best 3-game stretches, like of his career in the last couple of weeks since he got crucified by everybody following them getting crushed by the San Francisco 49ers. You mentioned the Detroit Lions getting off the mat. Dak Prescott has, responded really, really well to that really bad performance a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he has. And I think their bye week came at the perfect time. Like it was a great reset for him. And when did the Cowboys start winning at home? Like this is an anomaly. Like we're in the upside down world here. But yeah, I agree with you. And a few weeks ago, like in the beginning of the season, I had a stock up for Mike McCarthy. I've been critical of him in the past. I think he gets overly criticized. And then when they were struggling and it didn't look right, I reverted back to that and was like, man, I don't know. McCarthy's showing kind of his old stuff. I think you have to credit him about what's going on here because like now he's back in charge of the offense. Now he's back in charge and it has more control over what's going on. Like he's not just there as like the CEO. Like he actually is putting his imprint on this football team. And the offense, once they started figuring out we need to throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb, which it shouldn't have taken this long to be fair, but when you start leaning into that, he like 12 catches, 158, 2 touchdowns. He should get that target share every single week. Because then it opens up Brandon Cooks because he can burn one-on-one on the backside. Then you have your other guys, the tight ends, the interior with Gallup. Then they can get targeted in their efficient spots across the middle of the field. So once they figure that out, I think, yeah. I mean, you have to say stock up on the Cowboys because, like you said, this defense are monsters.
It's crazy.
Dan Quinn is a stud defensive coordinator, and he's going to be able to work things out forever. Like with Micah Parsons and that pass rush and those defensive linemen, it's going to make whoever's back there in the secondary much better. When you have ball hawks, you're going to be able to make some noise. So I completely agree with you there. I thought they were impressive this weekend.
Who do you got for your next one?
I'm the Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals. I think anybody could see this coming. Like as soon as Joe Burrow was going to get healthy.
Every year, this is how they start. They suck, and we all bury them, and then all of a sudden, they're going to win the AFC.
And it's because Joe Burrow's missing time in training camp, and it takes him a little bit of time to get in rhythm. And it hasn't been to any fault of his own, an appendectomy and then a calf pull. So that hurts, right? Like you're going to need to take time. And if you don't work through it, you're going to start slow. And that's what happened the past 2 years with the Bengals. But Tyson, Joe Burrow is a killer. He's a killer. And when he's healthy, like these guys are not scared of anybody. Like they know that they can beat anybody in the league. They believe it. And so when Burrow starts feeling right, like he's running around, he's like sprinting, is able to rush going forward. That has a completely different element to this offense. He's able to drive and step into throws. I think anybody could see it coming. And it's not just like, well, that's what they do. I'm not saying that we're geniuses here, but we said just wait until Burrow gets healthy. We think it's coming soon. Like we saw that against the Cardinals. And then what do you know? This offense is ripe for the picking. And Tyson, they just shredded up that 49ers defense. Like he was a surgeon. That was one of the best performances I've seen, and that's against a really good defense.
There's no way you got through the entire Bengals point there without mentioning your boy Big Lou, man.
Yeah. So here's the thing: everybody was trying to bury him early in the season. I said, hold on. He's got some new guys back there. He's going to figure things out, and that's what Lou Anarumo does. His defense is starting to play well again
He's so
because
good.
his
So good.
system. It's easy for people to pick up, like his own players. It's really hard to combat. And so once, like Cam Taylor Britt, people are like, I don't know how good he is. Like, did you not watch the playoffs? That dude was a star last year in the playoffs. Now he's in a bigger role. It's going to take a little bit of time to adjust. They lost both their safeties. Now they're figuring out the system. Like the sky's the limit, Tyson. And I know I know the Baltimore Ravens are getting a lot of love and they're a really good football team. I think if you want to take a flyer, the Bengals might win this division.
I mean, it's making my preseason bets feel a little better. The Cincinnati Bengals over the last couple weeks here, my tickets are, they're sitting up in my wallet. They were hiding for a minute, but this team is awesome. Like this was, like they keep trying to kill Joe Mixon. Everybody keeps trying to kill Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon can't play. Joe Mixon is washed, and we're not condoning Joe Mixon here, but Joe Mixon's a good football player. And Joe Mixon's going to continue to be a good football player. He's going to have bad weeks, but when he looks just fine, this offense is unreal because when Joe Burrow has it going like he had it going, good luck. Because that was, look, San Francisco's defense has not been as good as kind of we were led to believe over the first couple of weeks of the season. They've certainly not had a good little stretch of the last 3 or 4 games here. Maybe that's Steve Wilkes, maybe it's not. But the point of the matter is they got really good players, and Cincinnati did pretty much whatever they wanted. And on the flip side, like Brock Purdy's probably concussed. That was a bit ridiculous, kind of, to trot a guy out there 6 days after, getting his bell rung like that. But they were just taking the ball away. They were doing whatever. Like Christian McCaffrey's going to make Christian McCaffrey play. Sometimes you just have to live with those as a defensive coordinator. And this was the George Kittle spike week. To survive a George Kittle game against the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm being genuine, that's insane. Because when George Kittle booms, they win games by 30 points.
Yeah, and it helped that Trent Williams and Debo were out. Like we know that, right? But I mean, still, Purdy threw for 365, and they only gave up 17 points. That's pretty impressive. I agree. This was a statement win for the Cincinnati Bengals. Who is your final stock up?
Statement win number 2 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's some things with this team that like aren't great. I'm not looking at the Jaguars right now thinking, man, this team like can or should win the AFC. I think Jacksonville has the potential to get there. Like the offensive line needs cleaning up, all that stuff. The offense doesn't look fantastic throwing the ball right now. Brad, they just won weird and they won ugly against the Kings in the Pittsburgh Steelers of winning weird and winning ugly. They outdid Pittsburgh in a weird game. In our pre-show or our preview show, we were mentioning like they're going to be weird turnovers that don't happen other places for Jacksonville here, and they had them. And all they did was show up and keep moving forward. Travis Etienne, man, you're telling me that one of the best running backs in the history of college football is translating at this level in the NFL? How crazy is that? This dude has been absolutely on fire. Look, he might be the majority of the offense right now, but they're scoring enough points to win because that defense is good enough to win them pretty much any game that they're going to get into here with some of these AFC big dogs because like the Chiefs aren't blowing anybody out of the water right now. The Ravens offense looks really good. And we'll see it like how that matchup would theoretically play out here. But man, I'm encouraged if I'm Jacksonville. This went from I don't know if they're going to win the division. Like this doesn't look great. Houston, like what the heck? They've won 3 games and now it's like rear view mirror. See you guys.
And well, Tyson, you knew they're going to win the division because we gave it out on this show, and it was a hammer lock.
Twice.
Yeah. So we brought back in live, and that was a big play when we got them at minus 120, and that I mean it's already at like minus 300 now. So hopefully you guys tailed that one. But what the Jags are doing, I'm not as high on the defense, I think, as you. I think there's some things that can get cleaned up and can get exposed if they're not careful. But that's with every football team, right? Like you're all going to have your weaknesses there. I think the biggest thing for me is after the wide receivers and Trevor Lawrence were on the same page early and they were plagued by drops, that's not the story anymore. I think they figured out, okay, what we're really going to do is, like you said, let's lean on ETN, let's lean on Trevor Lawrence and big down situations on third down. Like it's these 3rd and 6s, dude. Like they're not just going to the sticks. Like they're throwing 15-yard out
Yeah.
routes and he's throwing them on ropes. And that's when it gets scary. And I think it started over in London when they shredded up the Bills in the second half. Like they could do anything on third down. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was super impressive. So I'm high on the Jacksonville Jaguars as well with you.
You got one more of these?
I do, and I think it may be a little controversial to some, but I have Zach Wilson as a stock up here. And I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah and Dan Orlovsky explain this a little bit, and I was thinking the same thing. And so when they went into a little bit more detail about what they've seen on the All-22, it kind of aligned with what I was watching just from like the naked eye when I've been watching these games. Everybody's been saying, man, the Jets just need somebody who's not going to turn the ball over. Well, Zach Wilson's not really turning the ball over, Tyson. Like, take out that New England game. Or I'm sorry, that Dallas game when he had 3 interceptions and it was his second start. He's only had 1 interception. That's not bad. He's had a few more fumbles. Like those are things that you need to clean up. Some of them are strip sacks, and this offensive line is not good. Like he's been sacked at a high rate. He's been pressured at a really high rate because this offensive line is just not very good. But in that monsoon, in a game they needed to win, in a game where the offense was horrible and it was a tough environment, just to go down with like 26 seconds left, throw ropes, and to getting them down.
Sick.
Like if that's Mahomes, everybody else is losing their minds. Like, look how he overcomes that. But since it's Zach Wilson, everybody's like, well, they were there in the first place. But it's like, I think what he's doing right now, he's showing his maturity, he's showing a growth at the quarterback position. I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame, but I think if we're talking about a stock up, what it is, I think this is a time where you want to buy a little Zach Wilson stock. Like he's improving as a quarterback.
I think I am 100% on board with Zach Wilson stock up. This guy just extended his career by like 10 years in the last couple of weeks. Like at worst, he's going to be holding a clipboard for a long time. But I don't think I'm all the way there with you on stock up. Zach Wilson is like a good quarterback. I think I feel like we did this with him last year. Like I feel like we did this when he came in and like won a couple games and like didn't turn the ball over. We were all back in, and then it kind of came back to earth. But like in the true sense of stock, like Zach Wilson's been way better than people expected.
Yeah, like people thought this was going to go to die. Like they needed to trade their life savings away and go get a quarterback because there's no way they could win, and yet they're winning. Zach hasn't lost them many games since he's taken over since that Dallas game. So let's get in the stock down now, Tyson. We always like to end on a negative. That's the type of people we are. Who's your first stock down?
I mean, it's kind of a double whammy here, Brad, but it's the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. Like the kid doesn't have it, man. I don't think so. That's like the majority of kind of what I see when I watch the Packers. It's hard to ignore because there are moments where it's like, holy smokes, and you kind of have to give the caveat like he's not really thrown to anybody. I think Jaden Reed is leading the team in receiving yards right now, but their offense seems to be like, hopefully Romeo Doubs catches us in the end zone. Because like besides that, we don't have a ton when we're down in the high red area, the low red area. Aaron Jones, I don't know what's going on, man. AJ Dillon, 40 yards receiving, like that's boosting the numbers. If you're going to box score watch a little bit, those are not very high value targets or high value completions. They're turning into first downs, but man, it's like they show up unprepared. They get blown out in the first half of every game. They have to try to claw their way back in, and the offense is just putrid. Like it's a horrible offense. Like when Aaron Rodgers was bad last year and this Green Bay offense was bad, it was so much better than this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'm the same boat here. Green Bay Packers stock down. I think it's hard to ignore. Like you said, like they came out of their bye week. Yes, they were banged up, but you go and face the worst defense in the NFL at that time, the Denver Broncos, and you laid an egg. Like you couldn't move the ball. You play this Vikings team. You're at home. So many opportunities that the defense gave you with the turnovers late in that game where you had a chance to score, you had a chance to make it a one-score game and put pressure on the Vikings, and the offense couldn't do it. Jordan Love, we talked about this before. I still think the jury's out. I know a lot of people want to bury him right now. The reality is we've seen 7 games of this kid. 8 games if you want to take a couple from last year, maybe 9 games. So I still think we should give him a little bit of time. I think the Packers would be wise, though, if they want to start looking at quarterbacks in this class, depending on how this season goes. I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. Like, you have to start figuring out Might as well start taking another quarterback here. If you don't think this can be the guy, there's no point in waiting, especially in this good of a class. But my brother said this to me. He thinks LaFleur might be a little fugazi. Like he thinks he was carried by Rodgers. It's starting to look that way. Now, on the other side, when you go from having a Hall of Fame quarterback and you having veterans everywhere on your roster where they can do things in the offense and they can really understand what you're teaching to 23-year-old kids coming out of a one sentence college spread option and spread offense, the translation is going to be hard. So I still think it's hard to gauge, how this thing is going to look going forward under LaFleur. But right now, I mean, you can't say this is not pretty. I mean, it's ugly. So yeah, definite stock down for me here as well.
And then my next one, kind of going to stick in the same game here. This sucks for Kirk Cousins. This sucks. Like a torn Achilles here. He has been balling the last few weeks. He's been auditioning. This is a contract year. This is the guy who got 2 guaranteed contracts way before it was a talking point in the NFL. This is a guy that was going to go out and get, this injury cost him $70 million. Like, let's be real. He was probably going to sign a 3 for 100 somewhere, 3 for 120 with the way he was playing. And I don't really know where you go from here because we've never really seen somebody come back and be effective from this. We're all excited and waiting anxiously for Aaron Rodgers to try to beat this thing in 9 weeks or whatever his plan is. But these are not like a torn Achilles at any age in the NFL is it's really tough to deal with, let alone when you're 35 years old, already not mobile. It sucks because the Vikings were on fire. They're crushing people going into this. And now it's like, man, hopefully Josh Dobbs can just help us score 2 touchdowns a game because Jordan Addison was rounding into form. You were going to get Justin Jefferson back. This offense was looking real spooky. And now, unfortunately, Kirk's only going to retire with $240 million instead of $360.
Yeah, and be clear, Tyson not saying Kirk Cousins is stock like he sucks now because he tore his Achilles. He's just saying stock down in his career, which is unfortunate because the dude was playing his way into a big contract, whether it was with the Vikings or another team, because he's been a top
stock down Kirk Cousins' agent. That's probably more apt.
Yeah, the value maybe. Open market value, something like that. But yeah, I agree. It's brutal. Just a brutal thing. And did you see he came out like they had a charity thing at the stadium, and he came out and still after he tore his Achilles, like, oh gosh, man.
It's so funny that everybody hates him so much, and I'm guilty of this at times too. Like sometimes I'm like, dude, Kirk, shut up. But his teammates love him.
Oh, right.
Yeah. His teammates love him. And then if that was just a guy in your neighborhood that you knew, like with some of these things that we see Kirk Cousins do, you'd be like, that's the nicest guy. I like
right. That guy. Like, what a great neighbor.
Yes.
Tyson, for me, it's clear. Cleveland Browns, how can the stock not be down on these guys? They have a top 3 defense in the NFL, yet they're sitting at 4-3 because they made a stupid investment in Deshaun Watson, who I don't know what's going on there, whether it's an actual injury with the shoulder or not. I'm not sure. He's been cleared. That's what we know. He's not on the field. So you're having to run out there when your defense, you wanted to hire a defensive coordinator and Jim Schwartz to elevate this defense, and that's what's happened. Yet you have to take a step back because you have PJ freaking Walker as your starting quarterback with this loaded of a roster. Like, they should have been competing for this division. With how good they are on both, with so much talent on both sides of the ball, they should be up there with the Ravens. But yet they're 4-3. And it's unacceptable. And it's a classic Cleveland Browns move. Such a classic Cleveland Browns thing. So it makes me point once again to ownership, to whoever's in charge.
Mr. I know Haslam.
And it's a revolving door of executives because Haslam's an idiot. And just you put yourself in this situation again. And so stock down majorly for the Cleveland Browns.
Unironically, Josh Dobbs would have been an awesome fit for this team. And this is a team that had him in the building and was like, nah, we're good. We don't need you. Deshaun's going to play the whole time. Yeah, it's weird with the Browns because on one hand, it's like, wow, I can't believe they're competitive with PJ Walker. And then, like, you can't say that while ignoring the $270 million man sitting on the sideline that may or may not be cleared or is cleared but isn't healthy, and, like, what's going on with that. Yeah, it's a shame that they did this to themselves because it was fun for everybody, much like when we were talking about the Lions. Like, it's fun for everybody to be able to get behind these teams, and they went out and signed the one guy that was going to make everybody be like, nope, we don't really want to cheer for you anymore. So I have no sympathy here for the Cleveland Browns. The next one, Brad, I got a little bit of sympathy for Houston Texans. That's my
Okay.
stock down this week. First of all, I don't think that like they were ever as good as the 3 wins kind of indicated. They jumped all over the Steelers and we kind of lost our minds. They still should have won this game. This is coming out of a bye. This is what the offense looks like for real. Like, this is your first bye week as a head coach for D'Amico Ryans. It's your first bye week for these coordinators. It's your first bye week for CJ Stroud and this offense. And we come out and Nico Collins is 4 for 30 and Tank Dell's 3 for 60 and CJ Stroud doesn't throw a touchdown. You have to get basically gifted quarterback sneak touchdown there to kind of like it was a piss poor offensive performance. I don't think the defense played bad. I do think it was kind of funny to watch everybody. Oh, Bryce Young is doing cool stuff. Like,
Yeah.
we just haven't been watching for 7 weeks. He had a slow start to his career. People, calm down. Bryce Young's going to be just fine. But I'm a little bit concerned that this was the product that was put out on the field, given the fact that it was the first bye week for this kind of coaching staff. And that's obviously going to get better, I imagine, at least going forward. But first impression was not good.
And I know it was a fullback dive, Tyson. You know how I knew? Because I needed Damian Pierce in our fun parlay section, and he had 2 opportunities and couldn't get in. I was not a happy camper. I'll tell you that. That didn't sit well with me. Oh no, it was Stroud. No, and Andrew Beck. Yeah, Andrew Beck and Stroud. So the QB. Yeah. So
And there was like a
we were both
penalty
right
that
there.
extended the drive or whatever it was. It was, yeah, wasn't easy to score from the 1 yard line for the Houston Texans this week.
So I think at the same time, CJ Stroud, there was not very much tape on him, right? Like, we saw that at the beginning of the season. There is now tape. There are now tendencies. There are now things that defensive coordinators in this league can do with equal or greater talent to take away some of the things that Stroud was doing early on. So while we anointed him early, like, whoa, look at what he's doing, and we
saying Will
expect that
Levis
to
is better
go.
than CJ Stroud?
Wouldn't that be great? Holy smokes, that would be a storyline. But I think what we're going to see, Tice, honestly, is we're going to see some of the rookie struggles and some rookie growing pains that CJ Stroud. Remember, we said he could probably play as a rookie like right away, but it's going to take some time. He raised the curve a little bit, like kind of like was above like the baseline level that we thought. I think now we're going to start to see that flatten out to a level that we thought he was going to be performing at this season, if that makes sense. At least that's what my prediction is. I don't know where you stand on that, but I think we did start to see that the past couple weeks with CJ Stroud.
It's just concerning that this is the defense to take advantage. Like, if the Carolina Panthers defense is going to be able to hold you again off a bye, you had 14 days to prepare for these guys. Like, you're in big trouble going forward for the rest of the season. And that's okay for Houston. It's okay for them to win 5 games this year. It's not like 5 wins. If they look, dude, before the season, if somebody would have said if Houston's going to win 5 games, would have been like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then they won 3 immediately. And so now 5 doesn't feel like enough.
Yeah, no, I think that's perspective for sure. Last one for me here, Tyson. I'm going to go the Indianapolis Colts, and it's the same type of thing that you said. Mainly for me, though, it's this defense is atrocious. It's horrible. I mean,
your boy was going bombs away.
Gus Bradley. I mean, just outdated, archaic. The cover 3, you got to have some wrinkles to it, and he hasn't done it yet. Everybody who plays this team is putting up numbers, and so the Panthers play them next week. I think we'll get a better idea of how good that offense can look against the Colts. The only reason why I'm not completely burying them is this offense is just scoring on everybody. Like, Shane Steichen's doing such a good job with play design and things like that. Like, they put up 27 points on the Saints. 20 of those were in the first half, so there were some halftime adjustments that Dennis Allen was able to make that the Colts couldn't respond to. But stock down for me, it's just the defense. Like, they're not going to be able to win. And I think if you're the Colts, that's probably a better thing than if they came out and won 6 or 7 games. Like, I think, honestly, 4 or 5 wins for where they're at and where they should be building towards, that's actually going to be better because you have better assets and things like that. But I'm just going to go stock down based on how poor their defense is.
they're going to scare the shit out of a lot of good teams this year because, like you said, they're they're scoring. Dude, they were annihilating that Browns defense for like a while in
Yeah,
that
no,
game, and it was insane. Um, yeah, I mean, Michael Pittman's back. Jonathan Taylor looked really good before he hurt himself. Maybe that flips the tables a little bit, but you can't let Derek Carr go 310 on you. Rashid, he'd get like 58-yard touchdown bombs. It's like they have one deep threat. They have one speedster on the field ever in New Orleans, and you're just going to let him do it twice? Like,
yeah.
what? Yeah, it wasn't ideal.
Okay, that's it for stock up, stock down. Tyson, real quick, I'm going to give out one play because I believe this is going to move, and it's going to move in a hurry. So for in money making time, our early pick here, I'm going to give out Falcons -4.5. They're heading back home. We know they play much better at home. They're playing the Vikings, who I think it's going to be Jaron Hall. I actually think if Desmond Ritter, now I know Brock Purdy got cleared with the concussion last week. That's the first time it's happened in the NFL this season. I
They
think
said
it's going
Ritter
to be
was
Taylor
good to go,
Heineke.
though. Like,
I
Arthur Smith
think
said he was good to go.
Arthur Smith also doesn't tell the truth a lot of the times. I mean, that's his
That's
MO
what it's
here.
confusing. Is like he gets flagged at halftime while you're in the locker room. That's when he gets flagged for this concussion. No. You told the whole media that they were so dumb for saying you should bench Desmond Ritter that you didn't have the guts to do it on the field. You had to do it in the locker room. This dude is whatever. Like I'm not a fan, man. I don't like Arthur Smith anymore. I used to love him, but he's abrasive for no reason, and it's like, buddy, get the silver spoon out your mouth and like, come on, like let's be an adult.
So I'm taking Falcons -4.5 here because I think Heineke's going to play. That raises their ceiling. Now you have the unknown of Hall, but I think the level that the Falcons can play at home is going to be greater than what the Vikings are going to be able to provide on their side. We know that they're going to blitz because that's just what Brian Flores and that defense does. I think that'll open up a lot of things for these weapons across the middle. When one-on-ones against a weaker secondary, it's going to give Taylor Heineke, even if it is Desmond Ritter who's playing at home, a much greater chance to win this football game. So I like the Falcons right now -4.5. We'll play it to 5 if it does move in the meantime before you're listening to it. So I'm going to give out Falcons right now in money making time.
It's unreal to me how you and I have both lost many times on Jaron Hall, either covering a spread we didn't think he was going to cover or not covering one that we thought he was going to cover, and you're going to fade him immediately. I figure you knew better than this. This guy's been stealing money from us.
Yeah, you're right. Either one way or the other. We back him, he screws us. We go against him, and he still screws us. Yeah, it's one way or the other. So, oh, man. All right, well, that's going to do it for our show. Tyson, tell them where they can find the rest of our stuff in the meantime.
Yeah, if you want to check out any other picks, they'll be in the Chalkboard app. That's on the App Store, Google Play, wherever you download your apps. Group name is ISWIS, presents the Roundtable Bets. It's a free group. We'll let you write in, and it's, the rest of the NFL plays are going to be in there. We got NCAA football stuff. We got the playoffs just dropped today, the rankings. So that'll be fun. Check that episode out tomorrow. But all of our picks will be in the Chalkboard app, and just go ahead, hop in there, and throw something down.
In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button on the way out. Leave us a comment if you have your own stock up or stock down. That'd be great. We'd love to communicate with you guys and let you know and hear what you guys have to say. If you're listening in podcast form, rate, review if you haven't already. 5 stars would be preferred. If you hate us, let us know in the comments. We'll see what we can do to improve on that. So we always like feedback. You can follow us on social media, X, Instagram, TikTok. The handle is the same at ISWIS_pod. Like Tyson said, we got a big college football episode coming later this week. New playoff rankings. Big games this weekend, too. They're going to have huge implications. So we can't wait to dive into that. We hope you join us. We'll speak to y'all then. Peace.